EP1847.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on March the 3rd, the year of our Lord 2026, 3326. Okay, yeah, I've got some great information for you tonight. So let me just go ahead and click over here, Murtech on Rumble. This is my Rumble page, and this is the video that we're going to be talking about tonight, episode 1847. This is my live stream. Let me jump into this. Okay. And tonight, pause that, close out the live chat, and slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. We have information tonight from Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino, Vince Dow, and Wendy Bell Radio. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs to give from Ricky Go, just started following my channel. Particular, I guess, just started following my channel. D Man's World just started following my channel. Rumble 63021 just started following my channel. And Trend Delgado 1958 just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, WBS reposted my episode 1846. WBS also commented on my extra 629A, 629B, and 628C. So thank you very much, WBS, for your support. I greatly appreciate that so very, very much. Let me give this a thumbs up. Boom. There we go. All right, and if you want to give me a thumbs up on this video, right here's the little thumbs up icon just below the video you're watching here. Just slide down and poke it or tap it with your mouse or whatever. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this with Glenn Beck. Will Iran be the next Afghanistan? Why Glenn Beck trusts Trump. And I'll tell you what, I trust him too. But let's see what Glenn Beck has to say about this. Oh, sorry. That's the wrong video. That's the wrong link. I'll have to update that. Let me jump back here. And this is the video right here. Let me click on that. Here we go.
I have to tell you, I come to you today, and I want you to hear me clearly. I am not trying to sell you on anything. I have been down this road so many times over the last 30 years, and I have seen things that I absolutely believed were happening that were not. I think we have been betrayed by our government over and over again, and I believe too many people I shouldn't have. I started this weekend with, why would I give my trust to Donald Trump? Donald Trump is not the Donald Trump of 2016. Donald Trump did not do this in 2016. But Donald Trump ran and said, no more of these wars. Okay, so I want to get into that here in a second. But when I say Donald Trump is not the Donald Trump of 2016, Donald Trump came in and he just kind of, he's got such a good gut on him. He was like shooting from the gut. And he's like, I want to do this and I want to do that. What Donald Trump has done in the last year has been remarkably coordinated and consistent. Now, you may not agree with it, and that's fine. You may not like it, and that's fine. But you should understand it before you make a judgment on it. And it's my job to try to figure out what the hell is happening and then tell you my opinion on it. I'm not going to give you, I guess I will give you my opinion because I'm going to show you how I thought of this, but I don't want to give you my opinion so you follow my opinion. That's not my goal. My goal is to help you think this through because you cannot just glob onto somebody else's opinion. Okay? You're going to get lost. If you do that, if you do that and you do this about feelings or winning or my team versus their team, you're going to get lost and you cannot afford to get lost. So let me start with principle number 1. Can you hate war and still fight one? Yes. And in fact, I believe that is the only moral way to fight a war. I despise war, but this must be done. Okay. There is a difference between loving war and accepting that sometimes you have to fight a war. And I'm not saying this is one of those times. I'm just explaining, can you hate war and fight one? Yes, a surgeon does not have to love the knife or cutting people up, but he does it because he has to. A nation doesn't love war. If it does, it has already become something dark and evil. But a nation that refuses to act when evil calcifies into permanence is not peaceful. Doesn't make you peaceful. That makes you negligent. So yes, being pro-peace and being willing to fight can coexist. In fact, I believe they must. And I saw that everywhere. I thought you were pro-peace. I thought you were against war. I am. Can we be adults and have an adult conversation? The deeper question is not, are you for war? The question is, what kind of peace are you trying to secure? And there are places where you go, I'm going to accept that peace. And maybe this for you is one of those places. But you can't jump to conclusions. Instead of just reacting, like I saw everybody on TV this weekend reacting, can we think like an adult for a second? First, what is the objective? This kind of goes into the just war theory, and I spent a lot of time on the just war theory. I want to know, is this just? Is this right? When do we have to step in and when do we not? Why do we step in here and not in Sudan? Okay? First, is the objective conquest? No. Is it regime change? Not sure. Is it humiliation? No. Is the objective the removal of a destabilizing terror-sponsored, nuclear-seeking command structure that has choked its own people and threatened an entire region? Yes, I believe that's it, but not only that. And that's really important. If the aim is limited and strategic, disable the head of the system that fuels regional chaos, then it is categorically different from marching divisions into a country to rebuild that country in our image. Iraq was nation building. Okay? This appears at this point to be decapitation and deterrence. You'll notice that he has not dictated that this will not be an Islamic State. Did you notice that? This is not the same as Iraq. I'm not saying it's better, that you have to agree with it. Please understand, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just trying to help you think it through. And I imagine there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me, and that's okay. My job is to help you think it through, not agree with me. Second thing, was peace attempted first? This one matters enormously. You can't just rush into war. And in the past, we have rushed into military action without creating a regional structure capable of sustaining peace afterward, okay? And maybe we haven't exhausted the road to peace. So this one is different. First of all, beginning at Jimmy Carter, we have exhausted peace. 49 years of peace talks, okay? And what's different, why I believe Donald Trump did not take this on work. He had done the Abraham Accords, but he had not done the rest of the work that is needed. The Abraham Accords fundamentally altered the Middle East diplomacy. It brought key Arab states into open normalization with Israel. And for the first time, major Sunni powers publicly aligned around coexistence rather than we got to wipe Israel off the face of the map. So they kind of joined the Western world and went, we can kind of coexist here. Also, Hamas's military capacity severely degraded since October 7th attacks and also the war in Gaza. That shifted the strategic balance in the region. Also, several Arab nations and governments have become stakeholders in stability rather than chaos. They're no longer standing on the sidelines. They are now saying, we want peace. Okay? It's not a small shift. That is a going to bring peace. Freedom's on the march, and we're going to bring freedom to these people. You cannot bring to these people. I thought we could. Afghanistan. For it, they must want it themselves. So if we were going into nation build, I am absolutely dead set against it. If you remove a destabilizing regime after regional powers are economically and politically invested in peace, the odds of a vacuum of chaos shrink dramatically. They don't go away. It still could become horrible in the end. This doesn't guarantee success, but it changes the probability curve, okay? Third thing I asked myself, can you be anti-war and still use force effectively? Yes, look at Donald Trump. This one is key. This is not, can you fight a war and be anti-war? This is, can you be against war and fight it effectively? Donald Trump is not pro-war. I don't care what any of the other pundits say that are now turned on Donald Trump, and I am not here to shovel garbage I'm not carrying any weight, any water for Donald Trump. He's a big boy. He can handle himself. Okay? I'm here just to tell you how I think about things and what I have noticed. During his first term, Donald Trump authorized the strike that killed Soleimani. Okay, this is the guy that was the architect of the Iran regional proxy war. This is the guy who was responsible for killing many U.S. soldiers. Okay? When he did it, people said, "Gonna set the whole Middle East on fire," but it didn't. Then ISIS, Barack Obama tried to fight ISIS for 2 terms. Couldn't fight it. Hillary Clinton goes over. She actually helps create it, make it more powerful. I mean, it was horrible. Remember, ISIS was burning Christians in cages, and we did nothing about it. Donald Trump, they were killing our soldiers, and Donald Trump said, we got to do this. And all the generals said, it's going to take us 2 years. And he said, bull crap, it's going to take us 2 years. Is there anybody who has less than a 2-year plan? That's when he found Raising Cane. General Cane came in and said, I can get it done in 4 weeks. And he explained the plan, and Donald Trump said, you're either crazy or you're my guy. And he convinced him he wasn't crazy. And what happened? We wiped ISIS out. The control of ISIS collapsed almost overnight, okay? Far, far, far faster than even the most optimistic people predicted possible, because Donald Trump started to surround himself with the people who knew what they were doing, weren't part of the system of bullcrap, and were fighting to win, okay? And that's when the message was sent by him. It was clear. Restraint does not mean weakness. There is a pattern here. He disdains prolonged occupation, paired with a willingness to use unrelenting, overwhelming, precise force with a great strategy. That's not neocon nation building, okay? That is completely different than what we did. This is coercive leverage. Fourth question, the capability that we have, does that matter morally? Yes, it does. I don't believe in a fair fight when it comes to war. I don't want a fair fight when it comes to war. I want to be so overwhelmingly powerful that it takes the oxygen out of the lungs of our enemies all over the world, and they go, oh my gosh, don't ever mess with them. That's the way to fight war. Now, one of the just war criteria is the probability of success. If you launch a war that you cannot win, you are not moral, you are reckless. If this president had demonstrated that when he uses force, it's targeted, short duration, strategically defined, followed by negotiation, then the moral calculus shifts. A limited strike backed by regional diplomatic architecture is not the same species of action as open-ended occupation boots on the ground. But isn't that how we all get into all these foreign wars? I ask myself, all these forever wars. Okay, so what about forever wars? Every American carries Iraq and Afghanistan in their bones now. We always will. No one wants 20 more years of ambiguity, drift, and defeat, and asking yourself, what the hell was that all about? But here's the question that we have to model honestly. Is refusing to act, even when action might prevent something larger, actually be the safer path? If a regime funds proxies across Lebanon, Gaza, Yemen, Iraq, if it arms militias, threatens choke points for maritime travel, pursues advanced weapons capability, like ballistic missiles, and I am discounting all the nuclear talk because I've heard that for 30 years. At what point does our inaction create the very forever war we fear? I come at this differently, so so when you're trying to make your decision, you understand mine. I believe we're already in World War III. I believe we are going to be fighting the armies of Islam in the future. And the head of that snake, a very dangerous head of that snake, are the 12ers that were running Iran. They are the most dangerous of any Islamic cult, okay? And sometimes refusing to act early guarantees a bigger conflict later. But this is not oh, yep, I know this is it. But peace is not being passive. Peace is stability enforced. Okay. Also, we have the people that were killed on the streets. But why not Sudan then? This one I wrestled with this weekend, and this is so uncomfortable because thousands have been slaughtered in Sudan just for being Christian, okay? Christians persecuted, horrors everywhere. So why not take that on? This is a really nasty thing, but this has to be said. We have to understand this. A nation cannot survive and act purely on moral horror. Okay? We can't, or we would be everywhere. Strategic impact, regional domino effects, alliance commitments, nuclear proliferation risks, direct threats to our citizens. What makes this different than the Sudan is Iran sits at the center of multiple global pressure points simultaneously: energy, shipping lanes, proxy networks, nuclear ambition, terrorism, and CRINK, which I'll get into in a little while, which is so important. If you miss CRINK, you don't understand what he's doing at all. Sudan is tragic, horrific and tragic. Iran is systemic. That doesn't make the suffering unequal in value at all. It just makes the geopolitical stakes unequal in scale. And that is not hypocrisy. It is statescraft. Okay? So, is this different? It may be. And not because war is good, but because peace groundwork, I believe, was laid first if you look at what he's trying to do in the Middle East. Regional players were brought into the ownership like I've never seen before. The strike appears to be limited and precise. There is no declared ambition for occupation. We don't want to be there. The president has a record of preferring leverage over quagmire. This could end badly. Zealots are patient. Retaliation likely. Sleeper networks are real. But it is equally possible that removing the head of this regime while surrounding it with economic normalization will produce a collapse inward rather than an explosion outward. And that didn't exist in 2003.
All right, there you have it, folks. Great information from Glenn Beck. I'll tell you what, that's why I share this information. Now, I could sit around and talk about this, but these people that I share this information with you, the information that comes from them is, and I've seen this before in comments from you folks. They're saying exactly what I'm thinking. You know, I hear that a lot from Dan Bongino. I hear that comment or see that comment back to me from Wendy Bell, from Glenn Beck. You know, they're saying exactly what I'm thinking, and I assume what you're thinking too. Now they can say it better. They're professionals at this. You know, I'm just trying to share this information out, but it also adds a little confirmation on the way that I feel, and I hope the way that you feel. Now, yes, this could end up badly. This could be another one of those forever wars. I don't think so. I think Donald Trump has done definitely some background information, and he knows just how far he can go on this. I mean, they're wiping this country out. I mean, there's not going to be anything left for any offensive against anyone, I don't believe. So, you know, we just have to trust what he knows because he knows a lot of stuff that, you know, like the mainstream media and the Democrats don't know. All right. So again, this does come from Glenn Beck. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right. I want to jump over here and one more time show you here for my creator program for March of 2026. This is my criteria. I've met every single piece of criteria here except for chatters. I need total unique chatters this month. I need 20. I've got 11. Here we are on the third day of the month. I've reached my hours streamed from Rumble Studio. I needed 30. I've got 34. Rumble Premium exclusive hours. I needed 5. I've got 6.1. Hours watched this month. This is the third day of the month. 200 for the month. Right now I have 445. Okay, I've doubled that on the third day. Doubled the entire month's criteria on the third day. Also, total unique raids this month, 5. I've got 9. So, folks, please, if you can give me a chat out there, I would greatly appreciate it. Right now, I've got 25 people watching on Rumble. Okay? Surely, some of you have not given me a chat so far this month. You know, if you could just give me a thumbs up in the chat box or a thumbs down, that'd be fine. Or, you know, give me a happy face or a frown face. Say hello or goodbye or whatever. Just please give me a chat. And the reason why this is important to me, and it should be important to you as well, is because when I reach this criteria from Rumble, then they're going to promote my channel and information out. And the more people that hear this information, the more people that hear the truth, the better off we're all going to be. All right. Well, with that being said, let's jump back here. Deb Brandt, hi. Thank you. M41 Coco, thank you so much. Okay, so let me slide down here, close this out. And while Glenn Beck was playing there, I did go ahead and fix my description box. That's one of the great things about Rumble Studio is that you can go behind the scenes and do things while your videos are playing and it doesn't affect them normally. All right, let's see what Dan Bongino has to say. Why now? Episode 2464. Let's see what he has to say. Go, Dan.
All the time. Sit down, buckle up, and get ready for the Dan Bongino Show.
Leadership, folks. Leadership. I discussed this the early days back on the air that real leadership involves making challenging and extremely difficult level 10 decisions where unfortunately the entire context of that decision, you can't explain. So what happens? What happens is people who just hate you in advance of whatever you're going to do, because they don't have the full context and don't want it, take advantage of that information black hole and impugn your character by telling people what you did without even knowing why you did it. You're seeing it today with both Trump and Rubio. People who, if you caught them in a corner and confronted them on it and said, tell me how you know what went into that decision, they would have to admit they have no freaking idea. And yet they're the loudest mouths out there. And I always want to be clear, I'm not talking about censoring anybody's opinion. I'm not even talking about telling them not to have an opinion. Have whatever opinion you want. This is an opinion show too. But can you at least acknowledge that your opinion is relatively uninformed next to people who have an informed data set to make a different? I'll show you what I mean in a second. Folks, I got to tell you, after watching yesterday, I cannot believe how the freaking doomers and gloomers and the black pillars, they're talking about forever wars. It's not even a week. It's not even a half a week. What's forever? No one's spoken out against extended presence and nation building of the U.S. military more than me. I actually ran for office on it. You can go look. A lot of these shit talkers never did a damn thing. It's not even been a few days. Holy Moses. I really can't believe it. Folks, I'm not abandoning the president, 2, 3, 4 days in to one of the most consequential military decisions. You don't have. I don't have now. I've been out 2 months. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. For what? For some cheap clicks and bullshit? I'm not doing it. I said, listen, I'm not asking you to trust anyone. So please stop saying stupid shit. Forever wars. You're asking me to trust them. Nobody's asking you to do it. What part of that do you not understand? It's not a forever war. It hasn't even been a week, and a week isn't forever. Second, this is totally different than Iraq. In quality, quantity, everything. And third, nobody's asking you to trust anyone. I'm asking you to trust results, not a person. If you don't like the results, after the data set is complete, then you can say, I didn't like the inputs, and here's my output. It's folks, I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. No matter what this guy, his administration, his cabinet, his team does, no matter what he does, within seconds, someone's got something to say about it. Borders at 0 illegal migrants. It should be negatives. That's really not possible. It doesn't matter. I want to make the guy look. It's freaking unbelievable. I'm going to play in a second this video I played when I first came back on leadership. Someone sent it to me because President Trump and his team cannot listen to me, folks. And I'm sorry, I really, really am not attempting in any way to patronize anyone. I'm not. I'm stating a fairly obvious fact. President Trump and his team are privy to a data set of intelligence that we are not. I'm not anymore. But having lived through it for a year, he can't tell you everything. I thought that was obvious. Apparently isn't. Some people out there in the media space think they're better informed than the president. That's great. Great. I'm glad you think that. You're just factually wrong. I'm going to get to that in a second because it's, folks, that I've just experienced it myself. I'm extra sympathetic to what he's going through because there are things we had to do we just couldn't explain. And you get Twitter people out there, I know what's going on. You don't know shit, man. You don't know a damn thing. Imagine the decisions the president has to make. You'd be crapping in your diaper, man. Your mommy'd have to get the wipies out, clean you up, you slob. You don't even have the balls. I didn't see half these people stepping up or volunteering for anything. You feel so passionately about the issue? Why not go in the administration? Take an assistant secretary of defense position. assistant secretary or something over at DHS. You got the access. You guys talk about it all the time. Why don't you do it? It's exhausting. Listen to the doomers. I'm done with it. I told you, I don't want you here. I'm not interested. You guys can go. There are 1,000 shows out there on the left and a pocket on the right where all it is doom and gloom. This ain't that show. All right, I'm going to get to that video. I want you to watch it. It's short, but you need to see it. Because if you're going to go and take a leadership position in an organization or anyone else, what do they say? Die a hero or live long enough to be the villain, right? That's what happens because there are always people out there who want to chop you down. And you're going to have to make level 10 decisions. And level 10 decisions always piss someone off because there's a shit call and a shittier call. And either way, someone's going to want your head.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. I'm like 8 minutes into this, but I will include this video in my daily news wrap-up so you'll be able to see the whole thing in there. I just want to give you a highlight here at the beginning. And again, he's saying exactly what I'm thinking. In fact, I just said it before this video started, that Donald Trump knows things that other people don't know. Okay? So why he made the decision to do this at this time is something that he knows why he did it. But, I saw an interview. They were, questioning Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, on this, and well, how long is this going to be? How many troops are, and how do this and that and the other? It's like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you our plans. It's like telling the enemy our plans. Back in Vietnam, okay, during the Vietnam War, now I was like, 13, 14. Okay, started a little bit sooner than that. But the thing is, we had 3 channels when I was growing up. Actually, 4 channel, an independent channel here in Indianapolis. ABC, NBC, CBS, and WTTV, which was an independent channel out of Bloomington, which didn't have any of the network stores. I had Popeye and Janie and other shows like that, independent shows. But at any rate, when 5 o'clock rolled around, if you were going to watch TV, you were going to watch the news. Period. End of story. That's it. Okay? Because, you couldn't flip over to HBO or or Cinemax or whatever. It wasn't around. Okay? We had antenna up to catch the aerial signals, analog signals going through the sky. And when the news came, when 5 o'clock came, it was the news time. And I could not believe, at 13 years old, okay, I could not believe Lyndon Baines Johnson would get up there and talk about, well, next month we're going to be sending 50,000 troops into Vietnam, and the next month in May we're going to be sending about 75,000 troops, and in June we'll probably drop that down to about 60,000. And I'm thinking, what the frick are you doing? You're on national television that anybody in the world could watch, and you're telling on national television how many troops you plan to send into Vietnam for the next 3 months so that they can prepare for that? This is how stupid that the Democrats are. And of course the mainstream media lets them get by with it because they're stupid too. So there you have it. Okay, now that I got that off my chest, let me click the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Dan Bongino Show. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, sorry about the blabbing there, but folks, this is something, what's going on now, I've been witness to all my life, okay? I remember hearing Dwight D. Eisenhower talk about the military-industrial complex in 1961, okay? I was 8 years old. In 1961, he warned us about the military-industrial complex. So That's been around now for just since that statement, 65 years. Okay? And obviously it was going on when he became president in 53 for him to know about it. So obviously it was going on when Truman was president, who created the CIA in the late 40s, early 50s. So we're going on at least a century of the Democrat Party trying to destroy this country. And the mainstream media patting them on the back and kissing their ass and feet while they're doing it. Okay, again, had to get that off my chest. I'm feeling better now. I hope that's not, you know, a bad thing, because now you're hearing more of me talk and less of news. But let's get back to the news with Vince Dow. Russia agrees to Ukraine peace terms in stunning reversal after Trump chess move succeeds in Iran. Isn't that interesting? Well, let's just check this out and see what Vince Dow has to say.
Narrative of a unified anti-Western axis is overstated. Russia and China share interests with Iran, but they do not share existential commitment. If the United States strikes Iran, Beijing and Moscow will calculate based on their own survival, their own economy, their own wars, not Tehran's, and that leaves Iran facing the most powerful military in the world, largely alone.
So I think that one of the more underreported stories of this entire weekend actually comes out of Russia and Ukraine, and the way in which one domino falling can affect another, because it is now being reported by diplomats that Putin and the Russian government have agreed to accept U.S. security guarantees, basically the American peace plan for Ukraine. And I'm sure the timing there, within hours of the death of the Supreme Leader, is just a big, gigantic coincidence, right? It has nothing to do with the other thing. Of course it does. And what was I saying about this conflict from the beginning is that what you're really watching is geopolitical chess between America, China, and Russia there too, right, as the third power. It's not necessarily about Iran itself. I would argue it's not even really about Iran's nuclear weapons program. It's that control over the Persian Gulf, and specifically the Strait of Hormuz, right, this tiny part of the shipping lane here that either a country like UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or Iran themselves could control and close down, is going to be a vital strategic choke point for the 21st century. And yes, both China and Russia are panicking right now that their only ally in this region was effectively decapitated. And again, a huge strategic loss there for both of those countries. And now you're seeing the results of that chess, right? They're watching, hey, one of our top allies just fell in a very strategically important place. They're watching too, by the way, as the American military in two separate allies of theirs now, right? Both in Venezuela and Iran absolutely crushed and demolished the vast swaths of Russian and Chinese military technology, as well as military doctrine that's being practiced there. And Putin is probably looking at it and kind of respecting the power that was just displayed and saying, okay, maybe it's time now to come to the table. So I think it's pretty undeniable, right? It's no coincidence. It's not black magic that on the same Saturday where you see all that go down, very quietly, things are finally moving along between Moscow and Kyiv. Because initially, it was true early on that, the side holding up negotiations looked like it was Ukraine because they didn't agree to territorial concessions over the past year or so, ever since Trump has taken off, Zelensky's warmed up to that. Now, for a while, it's Russia basically thinking to themselves, we have the leverage in this situation. We're still kind of progressing through this militarily. It helps us, right, to actually buy time here. The longer this all drags out, the better it is for us. But now, because of the two chess moves that were made by America, because of the two dominoes that have fallen against Russia's favor, suddenly now that calculus, ladies and gentlemen, in the wider world is changing, and we'll tell you all about this here today, guys. So that said, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit the like button down below, subscribe channel if you are new. And here are those full details. According to Reuters, Russian diplomats said at a recent talk in Geneva, and by the way, as you can see, when is this story reported, ladies and gentlemen? February 28th, right? That's the day this all began. So while this is all going on, there's a talk right now happening in Geneva. Both sides are watching what's happening to the Iranian government, now saying it would accept the U.S. proposal for Ukraine's post-war security guarantees, according to the chief of staff of Zelensky. The full quote here reads, at the last talks, the Russian side said, for example, that they would accept guarantees offered to Ukraine by the United States. He also expressed confidence here in the prospects of peace talks, noting that the issue of demilitarized zones has already been resolved. Very funny how this all starts to spring up. You know, for a long time, it seemed like the whole Russia-Ukraine peace negotiation was going nowhere. One could argue, not saying it's all his fault or anything, right? But it was kind of a political bad look for Trump. Hey, he campaigned on ending the Russia-Ukraine war. He couldn't get it done. And admittedly, it was a very hard thing to get done because Russia had all the leverage for a very long time. But who knew? Who knew, quite ironically, the way to bring about peace in Ukraine was sort of actually through war, right? All that it really took, right? Putin was having all this diplomacy, but, you know, what is he at the end of the day, right? He's a strong man. He respects power. He's being completely self-interested in this, right? He's seeing leverage. What leverage do I have? You guys have no leverage. You can keep screaming for peace, right? But we have the cards. We have more manpower. Sure, in the beginning stages of this war, it was true that, American and NATO technology was really making it difficult for Russia, and it has been a difficult war for Russia. And so that's something he's also probably been seeing over the past couple of years. But, you know, we have more manpower. The longer this goes, we're going to be fine. But the U.S. basically starts blowing stuff up, right? And there you have a wide-eyed now Russian government in Moscow basically saying, maybe the calculus there is a little bit different.
And what about Russia? Moscow has benefited from Iran, drone cooperation, sanctions evasion networks, regional coordination, but Russia is calculating carefully. It does not want to push Trump closer to Ukraine, risk direct US-Russia confrontation, stretch its own military capacity. Russian leaders may hope the Iranian regime survives, but they are unlikely to go to war with the United States to save it.
And folks, let's also not forget that when we're talking about Iran, we're talking about a country that is a major arms supplier to Russia, specifically for the war on Ukraine, which is to say that, for example, many of the suicide drones that Russia has been employing to relative effectiveness on the battlefield are coming in from Iran. And so when Russia has already faced a lot of logistical challenges in this war, despite its massive size, and they're being helped out and supplied by other countries for their munitions, and now one of your major, actually I believe probably your biggest supplier of that technology is now cut off, effectively collapsed, then Russia has to also make the calculus. Hey, what are we going to do next? Maybe now it's time to sort of give up the war, start to make negotiations for peace. And we certainly have to imagine it can't help the situation to see so much Iranian, which Russia is using, yes, but also Russian and Chinese military technology, yes, getting largely decimated by America on the battlefield as well.
Major combat operations continue and our response effort is ongoing. That major combat operation President Trump alluded to in a post on Truth Social not too long ago at all, in which he said, we have destroyed and sunk 9 Iranian naval ships, some of them relatively large and important. We are going after the rest. They will soon be floating at the bottom of the sea also. In a different attack, we largely destroyed their naval headquarters.
And by the way, I would further point out, I don't think this is just about America displaying its military strength. That's certainly a big part of it. After all, Venezuela and Iran were heavily defended by Russian and Chinese military technology. What did that get them? How did that work out? That definitely sends shockwaves in the political leadership of both of those rival countries. That part is true. But I think the other factor that we have to consider here is now diplomatic isolation. Because not only have both of those countries, kind of lost a proxy war, you could say, in very short time, but it also has to do with potential regional allies that likewise have fallen. And by the way, the diplomatic strength that as a result of this we've seen coming from America. Because if the belief by, say, the Eastern Axis was that, the world is going to be sort of angry at America and Israel, you're going to see Gulf states maybe become antagonized and actually turn against the West and maybe move more towards us, and that can offset the fall of Iran. That has not happened either. Yesterday, we told you about how Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and all of those Gulf states, these are Muslim nations. These are nations, by the way, that previously were trying to stay neutral in the conflict. They were attempting to negotiate peace between America and Iran, but Iran made the very stupid decision to start striking them and basically bringing non-involved neutral actors into the conflict. Saudi Arabia and countries like that responded by retaliating and saying, hey, we're now opening our airspace to U.S. forces. Don't play games like that, Iran, right? And they've since made even more aggressive statements here. Apparently, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have suggested they might even start targeting missile and drone launch sites themselves. So directly now, militarily getting involved in the war. But per the Wall Street Journal, this is the very important key detail, right? The plan by Iran, which was very stupid, and I pointed out from the beginning, what did they think was going to happen when they started bombing a bunch of other Muslim countries? Did you think, by the way, that was going to go well? But this was their plan, right? The plan by Iran was by bombing their Gulf neighbors, the Gulf countries would basically reel and be like, oh no, we got bombed, and would pressure the US to stop the war. The plan has hence backfired for the same reason why Japan bombing Pearl Harbor was a mistake, because it turns out when you bomb other countries, you don't suddenly scare them and say, okay, what do you want when those countries have leverage and strength? No, they just get angry. And so all that Iran did was push the entire Muslim world closer to the United States. You're now seeing that coalition begin to build. It's strengthening. So that's what's important to point out, right? It's not just that Russia lost a key ally. It's that the other potential countries in this very pivotal Gulf region where all the oil is coming from around the world, right? Key shipping lanes, all of that. Now countries like this, right? Saudi Arabia, who kind of remains neutral. They have positive relations with both Russia and United States, are now pushing even closer towards the camp of America. So that's probably, again, hopefully this is all making sense, right? But another reason why Russia's basically saying, okay, we have to start pushing for diplomacy, because if we don't, we're not going to have a lot of friends left in the world. You understand? As I said, this really is all a bunch of geopolitical chess, and it's the reality that America's two top rivals that it's constantly competing with, constantly butting heads with, kind of in a power struggle with. That's the truth. We know that's the way the world works. We've sort of checkmated them at the moment. And that's what you're watching. By the way, let's even talk about our so-called European and NATO allies, because, it's no secret that the NATO relationship has been on shaky grounds as of late. By the way, this was a key point of leverage for Russia, right? Is that, all of NATO is trying to go against us and they're trying to pressure us to stop, but how united are they? Well, it turns out as a result of this war, which initially, by the way, Europe was not involved in. It was America and Israel, then the Gulf states got involved. Now it's being announced by even countries like the UK, okay? Even this loser, Keir Starmer, who, let's be honest, probably secretly supports the Iranian regime, and if not, he definitely wants to appease the large voter base of non-British Muslims that he maintains power by appeasing and all that, right? But even now is getting involved in authorizing U.S. strikes on Iran from British military bases. So this is...
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. And let me remind you that this video does come from Vince Dow. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. He's pretty much talking about the same thing. And this, another difference between this conflict and the Iraq War. I mean, the United States was going all over the world begging people to help be involved in this. They're not doing that with this one. I mean, the Gulf states, most of the countries that helped the United States in the Iraq War, Canada, UK, France, Germany, Italy, Australia. I think there was a little bit from Japan. But in this one, it's the Gulf states right around Iran that are allying with the United States. So this is a lot different. I mean, Iran is actually suffering consequences from their next door neighbors. Okay? So they've pissed off enough people over the past 47 years that, yeah, I think it's pretty much the end of the road for him. Okay, Vince Stout, subscribe to his channel, giving him a thumbs up. Hope you do the same thing for me. Let's jump back here and let's see what Wendy Bell has to say about why don't they listen. It sounds like a freaking good question to me. Let's see what she has to say about it.
You know, I want to speak directly to all of you parents and grandparents out there. Those of you who do not have children, you are a part of this conversation for sure. But why I want to tell you something about having a child that completely changes your everything. You know, I didn't like kids when I was a little girl. I was a lousy babysitter. I was good at picking up people's dirty kitchens and fluffing up their, couches and their pillows and whatnot. And kids were fine, but I found them by and large, other people's children, I found menacing and annoying, and I really didn't care to be with them, to be honest. And I was pretty sure as I got older that I was not intended to have children. Was there something wrong with me? Was I defective? I don't know. I had some boyfriends, but they were in and out, nothing serious. Well, some serious, but nothing major. And it wasn't until I lived in St. Louis, Missouri, and I worked for the NBC station there. And I worked for a program that had me dealing often with children. And something happened. I was about 25, and I'd never felt it before. And there was this thing that happened with children and me. And I worked on a show called Show Me St. Louis. It was live every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you wouldn't think that a 3 o'clock in the afternoon TV show that was all about great places to take your children, whether it was art exhibits or it was history museums or it was presentations or it was historical places in St. Louis to go and to tour and to enjoy together, you wouldn't really think. Like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, who would ever watch that show? Everybody watched that show. And I was one of the original cast members on it. And so every day I was tasked with going out and doing a story, and it was quite a hustle. We had to go out, we had to tell a creative, fun story, promoting something that you and your family can do, whether it's a restaurant, what have you. And it was blew up. We were on buses, our cast of Show Me St. Louis was. It was crazy, right? Super, super successful because I think there was a hunger for natural, homegrown entertainment that didn't involve politics. It didn't have anything racy about it. It was celebrating a community and bringing people together to be like, hey, we're just like you are, trying to raise our kids. Let's do it together. And it was great. And I would go out and I would tell stories. And elementary schools or what have you would come join me at whatever we were doing. And they'd be around me and little kids would crawl into my lap and they'd be all around me. And then I'd go out in public and they'd find me and they'd come to me and they'd give me hugs. And it was a thing. And I was absolutely destroyed forever. Kids. And something inside of me switched. I didn't know if I was ever going to have my own. But I began to understand that thing that happens in you. Every decision you make, financial, right? Physical, how you drive, what you eat, where you go, how you spend your money, how you save your money. Everything changes when you have a child. And I didn't realize that not only did I want children, I wanted a lot of them. And if God had been willing, I would have had a sixth. But that didn't work out. This thing going on in this world is about our children. It is about giving our children's children a chance to live the way we did. It wasn't perfect, but it was traditional. It felt safer. It felt more sane. It felt structured, but it felt free. We played outside A lot of us had both parents working, and we were latchkey kids, and we had to come home and we had to manage things. And you know what? It worked. I want that for our children. I want that for my grandchildren, that God willing, I will have someday. And that is why every day I get up in the darkness of the early morning hours to scour what's going on, because my destiny, my gift back to my children is to fight every single freaking day as hard as I can so that we can get it the way it needs to be. This president feels that way, and his wife feels that way. Did you see Melania Trump presided over the United Nations Security Council meeting during these strikes on Iran? Iran is trying to kill civilians, children, men and women and grandparents. They don't care. Terror doesn't care. There's no humanity in terror. There can be some semblance of humanity in war, some kind of mercy. But there is no mercy with zealots, with people who feel the way they do about being so right in Iran. Melania Trump talking about children, saving them. Look, our border was flooded with young people who shouldn't have come here. And there should have been somebody to wave the flag and say, what are we doing? And I'm sure they were, but they were silenced. That wasn't the story. Media didn't want us talking about that. But those young people are here, and they are being victimized, and that is not right. We can put all of our eggs in this story called Jeffrey Epstein, but we turn a blind eye to 500,000 other children. How about our children who disappear, our children who are victimized by priests or by teachers or by Boy Scout leaders or what have you? It has to stop. Is it the one thing that we can agree on? It's not a Democrat thing. It doesn't have to be a conservative thing. It needs to be the right thing. It has to be the only thing. This country is nothing without a new generation coming up. And we're raising a generation of young people who don't feel the same way maybe you and I felt about starting a family. They don't feel like it's within reach. They feel like the deck is stacked against them, that there's no possible way. You know what, young men and women of America, let me tell you something. Your parents, just as way my husband and I, sacrificed and saved. We had no idea what we were doing. We were scared to death. We didn't have a choice. Nobody's ready. Nobody has a plan. Nobody's plan works out. Nothing is perfect. What are you willing to fight for? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to do? Because you're going to inherit this country. And my job, just like this president's job, is to give you the safest, most secure, most loving place. We know how. But you shoulder the responsibility now too. And that bell is tolling. So please, know how much we love you. Know how much we work for you. Know how much we've sacrificed for you. And know that we would do it every single day of the week and 5 times on Sunday. But we've got to pass that torch. So you better get your running shoes on, because you have some catching up to do. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, you know, the media seems not to listen much at all to what this Trump administration says. And I noticed that driving home yesterday. Marco Rubio, he's in the Capitol somewhere in a very noisy environment, answering about 12 minutes of media questions, 12 minutes. I'm going to play some of those for you in the next half hour, but let's open the door to this conversation. What happens when the people who are supposed to tell you what's going on don't care what's going on? They only want you to believe the narrative that they're pushing. You'll hear it for yourself. Coming up on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and play this next segment for you here. But please, folks, if you would, please give me a chat. Let me know. Okay. Right now, I have 25 people watching on Rumble. Okay. If everyone would just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down or whatever in the chat box, I would meet my requirements for this month. That would be fantastic. Okay, so let's get going here and see what Wendy has to say here in the next segment.
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. I appreciate you guys managing through the monologues with me because commonly I have no idea where I'm going with it. It comes from the heart, which is terrifying because I have no idea where that's going to lead us. But I really do believe that the overarching sentiment of why this whole involvement with Israel by our government against Iran, the overarching concept is we cannot have diabolical, volatile terrorists in this country or in this world, right? These two things do not coexist. You living your life and having your herd, your family, and doing the best you can, right? And then having people who want to kill you. These two things do not go together. And this president said, look, we knew that Israel was going to strike. We knew that they had military operations planned. Hell, Benjamin Netanyahu had been in the Oval Office 7 times, right? When was the last time you got a head of state from another country in the Oval Office that frequently? And we knew what they were going to do. And we knew that if they were going to do that, Iran was going to retaliate, but they were going to fire on the United States of America. Our people in our bases around the world positioned to protect the rest of the planet from them, by the way. And so we decided to be proactive, not reactive, or even worse, inactive. We decided to join in the mission. And you know what happened today, ladies and gentlemen? Israel just struck the meeting in Tehran where what was left of Iran's leadership was gathering to choose their new leader. Think about it. They didn't learn their lesson the first time. This is what they did on Saturday, the United States. After we realized where the Ayatollah was and 48 of his main military and spiritual leaders, gone, eating breakfast. What did we just do today? We took out the remainders of those people, of those leaders. Are you kidding me? I want you to hear Tony Dokoupil. So Tony Dokoupil, as you know, is the new CBS News guy. He's the new whatever, David Muir of CBS News. I kind of like him. I want to give him a chance. I don't care because by and large, I don't watch. But when it's something sensitive like war, and you have a president who comes out unabashedly and unflappable, and he's like, this is what we needed to do to protect the world's children so that they don't grow up in some kind of legion of doom where nefarious actors are lurking who put them in danger and make them feel unsafe. Enough. Make no mistake, this is this president's legacy. It is peace through strength. Listen to how Tony Dokoupil presented the story of the first several days of this military operation Epic Fury on Iran. And you decide, why do you think knives were out for this young new face before?
If you're looking for an origin point of this current war, don't look to the earliest hours of this Saturday. Look back to November 4th, 1979. That was the day Iranian revolutionaries stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, capturing 52 Americans and parading them in blindfolds for the whole world to see.
A new and daring element was disclosed today in the Iran crisis, which has held world attention for 87
For the next 444 days, they were held captive, the tally kept nightly by Walter Cronkite. Finally, the hostages were released, but that wasn't the end of the story either. Far more bloodshed was to come. In 1983, 241 U.S. service members were killed in their barracks by an Iran-backed suicide bomber in Beirut. Americans can argue, and they are, over whether this is a war of necessity. But what's clear from the history is that the fuse of this explosion is 50 years long and has included the loss of thousands of American and Iranian lives. Every president since Carter has tried to end this conflict. In 2015, President Barack Obama announced a deal to stall Iran's nuclear ambitions, a deal that President Trump replaced with a campaign of maximum pressure and now military might.
Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime.
That history is why the president's allies in Congress say he hasn't started a war with Iran. He is finishing one.
That wasn't on my card, you guys. I wasn't expecting to hear that from somebody in the quote unquote legacy news, giving you historical opinions, or rather facts, taking you back in time to what happened, showing you how prior presidents didn't have the will, the wherewithal, the huevos, what have you. They just didn't. President Trump does. And he makes no apologies. There is no member of the media who can finger wag. There is no foreign leader who can tell him he is wrong. In fact, President Netanyahu, or Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, 2 hours ago, I should say, called President Trump, said this: there has never been a president like Donald J. Trump. He brought America back to being the leader of the world. This isn't some ego play for everybody out there who believes this president is all about himself. The guy who doesn't take a salary, the person who gives money away as a private citizen to people on the side of the road whom he sees doing the right thing. The man who got behind so many black businesses when all of the banks in New York City shut their doors. The man who wants to find the world's children. The man who wants the theft of the American dollars to stop. The man who says to the world exactly what he thinks and says, don't doubt me. Peace through strength. And we have the strength to guarantee peace. You're simply have no interest in listening. They have interest in telling. Next, I'm Wendy.
All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, and let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. I am following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. And let me remind you that these videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer. All right, I've got the links to the videos as well as the links to the producer's channels here if you want to check out more of their information. Okay, I've copied the live chat into a comment so it will be permanent part of this video. Let me go ahead and, there we go. Now it's permanent. All right, I will be back here in actually just a few minutes, and we will go through our daily news wrap-up. I'm going to take off where I left off here with Wendy Bell Radio and with Dan Bongino, where I left off with his video, and then we're going to get into some X-22 report, latest information there, and We the People news on the fringe. Great information. I've got 17 videos here and about 13 hours worth of great information. So hopefully be back here in about 10 minutes or so, and I hope you join me. With that being said, I do want to thank you for spending your time with me this evening. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.